are the 2024 Boy Sober rules. No dating apps, no dates, no exes, no situationships, no XOXOXO. And if I have to explain to you what that means, you know exactly what I mean.
I stopped dating like a month ago, and already I feel lighter, freedom. Like, I didn't realize how much a weight I left on myself by like trying to find the one.
I just saw a guy talk about how he went girl sober for like 3 months, and I did the same thing. I went boy sober.
People who date men go boy sober because they're sick of being disappointed.
Y'all know I'm going boy sober.
Boy sober.
Boy sober.
Boy sober.
Boy sober.
Boy sober.
Boy sober. I am going celibate, boy sober, whatever you want to call it.
There's a new trend making its way across social media. No apps, no real dates, no hookups, no situationships. These women are swearing off men and are ditching the likes of Hinge, Tinder, and Bumble.
If you're only going to do one thing today, make sure it's deleting dating apps.
Dating apps are no longer for dating. Men have just turned dating apps into like an easier way to access convenient sex.
Dating apps are so dangerous to the human connection.
So what's driving this latest trend? Could people be tiring of these virtual connections and are ditching the apps in search of something more genuine?
I mean, I'm only hypothesising here, but I guess a lot of people got sick of being online all the time over the lockdowns. And so, maybe people are putting more emphasis on face-to-face or in-person experiences over virtual ones.
This downward trend isn't really new. The number of Tinder's monthly active users has been falling steadily for several years, and Bumble reported 70% of its female users experienced dating burnout. But while everyone seems to have their Hinge horror stories, relationship therapist Seraphin Upton says there's something about them that keeps us coming back for more.
It sounds crazy, but I think a lot of people feel embarrassed to want a relationship, and so they go online because it feels like you don't have to out the fact that you want to meet someone, right?
Kia ora, I'm Davina Zimmer, and today on The Detail, after over a decade of dating apps, have we forgotten how to flirt without them? TikTok users seem to think so.
So I haven't made a connection with a single person in the last 5 months that wasn't assisted by dating apps. And I've decided to quit dating apps, right? So now I have to talk to people again, which is giving me incredible anxiety, and I don't want to do it.
The idea of striking up a conversation with a cute stranger at a coffee shop may sound like old school romance, but it's really not that long ago that was how people met and relationships blossomed.
I honestly, you couldn't pay me to ask somebody out. I would never ask somebody out ever. I'd be absolutely terrified that they didn't like me or they weren't single. I wouldn't do it.
Seraphin Upton, despite what she does for a living, has a perpetual fear of approaching a potential match in person. So while the falling popularity of dating apps is signalling a return to the time of phone calls and bunches of flowers, have we gone so far down the digital road that we've forgotten how to date in real life?
I have to say that I think it's a really good thing that people are wanting to use them less or less charmed by them, because I think they're really problematic in their current form, and I think they're adding to existing problems or making existing problems worse. Yeah, so I think that it's good that people are turning away from them if indeed they are. The primary problem I have with dating apps, there's two primary issues for me. One is around safety.
We'll get back to this point later in the episode. But first, let's look at Seraphin's second concern, community development, which addresses the main question of how apps are impacting real-life interactions.
If we keep focusing on online interactions with strangers, we're not building relationships and building community with those people who are around us, such as our neighbours, people that at work we might not have talked to yet. We're not going to potentially invite people over for a barbecue who we've never met before, who might live on our street or might live in our apartment block. So I think for me it gets in the way of people building relationships in their natural habitat, if you will. It further isolates people, and we already know that probably one of the biggest problems in our society is loneliness, and so online dating is just perpetuating that problem.
Do I talk to and hang out with all of my friends on a regular basis? No, not necessarily, but are we exchanging anywhere from 5 to 30 TikToks and memes on Instagram about how unstable we are every single day? Yes, we are. Yes.
It's no secret. People love their screen time. Stats from last year show over 80% of Kiwis are active social media users, spending over 2 hours scrolling every day. But how genuine is a friendship that consists of sending funny videos back and forth? And the danger is, with screen time increasing, our opportunity to interact with people in real life is decreasing. And memes aside, Seraphin is worried that we may be getting to a point where we see the online world as a safer alternative to the real one.
It feels safer because we perceive that we're going to not be humiliated or shamed if we, ask somebody out and they reject us. And also, like, if they do reject us, we can just always just ghost them, right? And so the perception is that we are not taking a risk and we are safer because we can just ghost somebody, or we can just not wait for them to reject us. We can reject them before they get a chance to reject us. And so when you've got somebody who potentially lacks confidence to be able to cope with rejection, then they're not building their confidence, and then they become unsafe to be around other people because they're not building skills. So those are the people that we worry about. But just coming back to the word I've touched on before, it's like it's an illusion of safety. Like, it feels safer to talk to somebody behind a screen on an app, but it's actually, it's not. It's the perception that it's safer, but in reality it's not safer.
Is there also this false sense of genuine connection as well?
Yeah, I mean, let's put it this way. When we meet somebody that we want to date, there's so much data we need. One of the pieces of data we need is we need to know, is there chemistry? You cannot gauge chemistry over an app. You can't. You can't work out whether you like the way they smell. You can't work out whether because chemistry, like, nobody knows what causes chemistry. Like, we don't know what makes one person attracted to this person and not another person, right? Like, chemistry is so subconscious or so unconscious. It's like, when you meet someone at a bar, you're looking at how their body moves in space. You're looking at how they relate to the bar person who's tending to them. Like, are they being respectful and friendly towards the bartender? Are they making their friends laugh? Do people like talking to them? Do you notice that they're a good listener? Right? Like, this is all really nuanced social cues that we are not even aware that we're picking up on, but it can build our attraction to somebody. Like, if we meet somebody in our bar, there's a high chance that, because it's New Zealand, right? Like, you'll know someone who knows that person. And so when you have these community ways of meeting somebody, like at a bar, you're safer because you're able to pick up on all these like data points. Whereas when you're talking to somebody on a dating app, you're completely blind to all of those data points. We find it easier to believe what somebody's telling us than to consider what somebody is telling us as being not true, because it requires far more mental energy and far more mental load. And so when you meet somebody in person, you're more likely to pick up on their body language or their facial expression. There's something kind of off. You're highly unlikely to get yourself into a dangerous situation in person compared to like online, because you can be completely and utterly duped. That person can be lying about everything and you would never know. And you'd also not know whether you actually find them romantically or sexually attractive, because you haven't actually, there's no vibe.
Hey, would, habu, cool? Yeah, burb. Okay, I'm back. Gotta get to tail. Okay, to tail.
These kinds of convos may seem completely normal when you're having them over a digital medium. But between the abbreviated how are yous and surface level conversations, Seraphin says our society is fragmenting. People are becoming increasingly isolated and, as a result, more lonely. Once upon a time, relationships blossomed from approaching that person who catches your eye at a coffee shop. Nowadays, there's nothing more terrifying than the thought of doing that. Why does the idea of sliding into someone's verbal DMs, also known as talking to them in real life, give us the heebie-jeebies?
It sounds crazy, but I think a lot of people feel embarrassed to want a relationship. And so they go online because it feels like you don't have to out the fact that you want to meet someone, right? But most people want to be in a relationship. Most people want to be loved and want to love somebody. most people yearn to be in a partnership, but nobody talks about that, especially not in New Zealand. And so it's not really safe to be like, I want to find a girlfriend, or I want to find a partner, or I want to meet the love of my life. You can't say that. Like, that's humiliating and embarrassing. So there is stigma about wanting to be in a relationship or wanting to find someone. It's like there's a sense of like, well, you're kind of desperate, or you're kind of needy, or you know, like you should be by yourself first, but make yourself happy, blah, blah, blah. And so I think that needs to change. And I also think that there needs to be opportunities for young people, or everybody, to be able to socialize in safe ways that isn't online, like having more socially organized events. For example, like I'll go and sit at a cafe to work, and like I'm an introvert and I'm very shy, so there's no way I'd go and strike up a conversation with anyone. But what I've noticed is that if I go to cafes or restaurants and they have like those picnic tables where you have to share with other people, I will end up leaving those spaces with like a bunch of phone numbers, because you cannot help but talk to people when they're sitting next to you eating chicken wings, right? Like, when these spaces are designed to facilitate collective interactions, they happen. But like, if you think about it, it's kind of random. Like if you go to a cafe or a restaurant, all of those tables are usually for an individual or for a couple. And so you don't get the chance to actually bump into other people or make friends with people in that cafe or that restaurant, because you are in your own individual tables.
Right, mate, what can I get you? All right, mate, can I get 2 lemonades, 1 rum and coke, glass of red wine, prosecco, and a lime and soda, please? Here you are, mate. Is that everything for you?
I have heard time and time and time again that dating when you live in Europe is so much easier. And the reason for that, especially England and like the UK, is because pubs, like those old pubs, are very much the institution of community life, and everyone goes to the pub to hang out after work. They really bring people together, and everybody knows what's going on in each other's lives. There's a real sense of solidarity and community. There needs to be some kind of way of like pulling people together that's inclusive of everybody, that kind of feels normative. At the moment, everyone finishes work and they go and do their own thing in their own social structures or their own family structures or with their flatmate. Like lots of people I know, like they've got tons of friends and tons of flatmates, and they still struggle to meet people for dating because they stay within those structures. But like if you create social structures or social events where you get to know people, and then you kind of find out whether or not they're single and whether or not they're interested without having to ask anybody out, like that would be my dream scenario.
So how do you start to do that as an individual person? I mean, the changes we're kind of talking about are like on a societal level, but how do we as an individual kind of start to make those changes in our own lives?
I think like this doesn't require any social changes at all, but it requires being a bit vulnerable, and it requires being brave as an individual. And I truly, truly believe that if individuals felt safer to be like, I'm single and I really want to meet somebody, and that they had that conversation with like 20 people in their network, they would find themselves a great person. We need to talk more and we need to be brave and be okay with saying, hey, I want to date somebody, or hey, I want to meet someone special. And that doesn't require any societal, like it doesn't require anybody putting on any dance events. It just requires being brave.
Yeah, it's that being brave thing though, isn't it? People still are afraid of, being vulnerable and saying, hey, I really do want a relationship, because it's seen as being desperate. Like, we constantly get told, oh, it like happens when you least expect it. It happens when you're not looking for it. And so it kind of leaves you, I think, in the end of the day, resorting to these dating apps for this fast kind of feeling of satisfaction.
There is that narrative of when you meet the one, you'll know, and like you just need to wait, and like it'll happen when it's going to happen, and like these things could not be further from the truth. Like there is no scientific evidence that you'll find that right person at the right moment. Like that's just woo-woo talk. But you're right though. Like given that it's not safe to be able to say I want to be in a relationship, because then you're not cool. And there's not really any way you can meet people because there's no one you date at work and you hang out with your flatmates. So like I totally get why people go on dating apps, because there's just such limited opportunities to meet people without like embarrassing yourself.
However, dating online has its own embarrassing stories.
Okay, so you guys loved hearing my dating horror story, and unfortunately, I have a lot more. So I thought I would share another Hinge horror story for everyone's entertainment.
And while these videos may prompt thousands of laugh reacts, they also prompt some more serious reactions.
Remember I said there's two issues I have with dating online, and one was about my concerns about community development. That's my number one concern, but on par with that, my other concern is around women's safety online. Unfortunately, what we do know is that people who are not very kind, who are not very nice people, are definitely more likely to be online because they can hide. Okay, they're camouflaged within those online systems. And so you are more likely to come across some bad apples on dating apps, unfortunately. And because what we know about intimate partner violence, those people are more likely to be men and the victims are more likely to be women. Not always, but predominantly. Like the stats are, very, very skewed in that direction. And so that's why I think that a lot of women are decentering men and doing the hashtag boy sober thing is because they potentially have had some very, very non-relational or very unsafe interactions with men online or offline with men they met online. Most men are good men, but there are some men who are bad, who do some pretty bad stuff, and they make things uncomfortable for everybody. If women feel harassed online, it's not because those 47% of male users are being dicks. It's just that some of those male users are being really, really bad. And so it makes men who use apps look bad.
Mm.
Men are more vulnerable than women in a lot of ways in terms of a lot of them lack the social and relational and emotional skills that women have. And so if you've got a guy who's kind of got some problems and then he goes online, he doesn't have the resilience to be able to cope with rejection, and then it kind of goes a bit pear-shaped. The biggest problem for men's mental health is loneliness, and so that's why you've got more men online than women online, because men are profoundly lonely, and so you combine that loneliness with desperation of wanting to meet somebody. It's not a good mix.
Mm. And it's that, like we said, that loneliness, and I mean, there's this kind of lacking of social skills because the more time we spend online, the less opportunity we have to actually practice these vital social skills of talking to people in real life, right?
Yeah, exactly. You're exactly right. Like when you've got a guy who's lonely and who lacks social skills or lacks social emotional skills, and he's doing online dating, like it's an absolute disaster for everyone, including him, because he's not getting any opportunities. He's not getting any exposure to practice talking to girls and to understanding what it's like to be a girl, to understand how girls think. It puts him and young women at risk.
So dating apps have kind of just exacerbated an issue, really.
Well, you were talking about that at the start of the conversation. We were talking about that, about how there's existing problems in society and then online dating has exacerbated them. So this is an issue that we've known about, all of us have known about for a long, long time, that men struggle with relationships, struggle with communicating about their feelings. They get told to harden up, they get told to man up, they get told it's not okay to have needs or desires or fears or anxiety, and the only thing you're allowed to feel is lust or rage, right? And so we've all been worried about men's well-being for a long time, and then the internet. And so now we have even more reason to worry about men's well-being and mental health as it pertains to their relationships with other people.
Would you say that men are more likely than women to not know how to socialize in person anymore?
What I think is that men are desperate for male friendship, but they don't know how to navigate male friendship, because talking about your feelings and needs and dreams with other men is not okay. And so they shut down those desires for male friendship and instead focus on women who they think is going to make them, a girlfriend is what's going to make them happy. And so that's the problem, is that those men are not focusing on building male friendships. They're focusing on, they think women are the answer.
I think it's fascinating, this whole idea of how, you know, we don't seem to know how to just talk to people in person anymore and just strike up a normal conversation and meet people that way. It's just, we do it so much online now.
Most people are good socially. I think where people struggle, especially men, is around talking about more complex things like feelings and internal experiences. But then if you are somebody who lacks social confidence and you also can't talk about your interior world, that's when we get into trouble. It's both. It's like we need social skills to be able to be brave, but we also need to be able to, you know, have emotional skills to be able to communicate effectively in terms of romantic relationships.
Are there any other pieces of advice you would give to someone trying to navigate dating and finding a relationship?
I'm like a glass half full, incredibly, I have way too much optimism. It gets me in all sorts of trouble. So I actually find, like, thinking about what could be alternatives to dating online, I actually find that incredibly exciting. I think thinking about how one could meet prospective dates offline is very exciting to think about because it's creative. But the number one piece of advice I would give anybody who is looking to meet somebody is the same advice as Kiwis give each other all the time, which is ask people you know for a recommendation. So, like, you know how you go on Google and you're like, which place should I take my cat to the vet? Which is a good vet? And it's like, this place has 5-star reviews. Or where should I take my appliance to be repaired? And like, this place has good reviews. Or like, you know, like asking people for recommendations. I truly believe that's the best way to meet somebody, because you can trust the people that you trust most of the time. Like, I actually think it would be really cool if other people nominated their friends instead of like it being about the individual being on a dating app. Friends and family should be on dating apps and be like, I know this really awesome person and I endorse them and I think they would be wonderful to be in a relationship with. That's a whole other conversation.
That sounds like a business idea you've got brewing there.
Maybe. But wouldn't it be cool if, like, if you had people around you who like endorsed you and as like a cool person to hang out with? Like, I think it needs to be community-led and community-driven. I think our friends and family recruiting for us is the way forward in future. I truly believe that. I think that's the best way forward, is getting our friends and family to do the fishing and be like, this person is lovely. We think you should go and have a coffee or go on a walk on the beach with them. I think that's the safest way forward. Dating apps aren't doing anyone favors socially or emotionally. They are, I don't have anything positive to say about them at all.
Oh, well, yeah. Well, you'll be happy to know then that I've just deleted mine. More meeting people in real life. Let's bring back dances and getting our friends to set us up on blind dates, hey?
I reckon. I reckon bring back like the 50s to the 80s where, and talking on the phone instead of talking online.
That's all from The Detail today. We're funded through RNZ and NZ On Air. This episode was produced by Alexia Russell and Gwen McClure and engineered by Phil Bench. Thank you to Seraphin Upton for the dating advice. I'm Davina Zimmer. Ka kite anō.